This immigration drama that we have right now is only possible because we don't understand our own history. As a country, and particularly those of us of European descent, we have lied to ourselves about how we got here and for what reason. See, black folks know why they're here. Native peoples know why they're here and how they got here. A lot of Asian folk know, particularly if they're Chinese American, they know they got here because their ancestors were brought over to work on the railroads by the railroad barons who didn't care if thousands of them died laying track 19, 20 hours a day. But for those of us who are from Europe, we have this fiction that we've told, and we believe it, even though there's no truth to it. You know what the fiction is? It's two parts. Number one, we say things like, with regard to Mexicans coming over the border, with regard to immigrants coming over, but only that border. That's the only one we care about, right? The southern border. I find that interesting. We're not flipping out about Canada, right? We only care about that one border, forgetting for a minute that that border was created at the end of a war that was started on false pretense by this country, after which we jacked half of their country. And you weren't taught that in school either, because our history books aren't interested in telling the truth. They tell this very patriotic history that has no relationship to the fact. So that border is artificial. Mexican folk who are coming here, documented or not, let's be clear, are coming home. Their families were here before our families were here in almost every instance. But we forget that, and then we say things like, well, I don't mind them coming. I just want them to come legally like my people did. The hell does that even mean? Come legally? There was no law to break when our people came. The fact that we didn't break a law that didn't even exist, you don't get cookies for that. You don't get like a pat on the back and a gold star because your great whatever was law abiding when there was no law that he could have violated, even if he wanted to. But we've told this lie that we came for these upstanding principles. So we'll say things like, well, you know, our people came for liberty and freedom. These people are just coming for stuff. They're just coming for jobs. They're just coming for health care. They're just coming for stuff. We came for high-minded principle, right? Because we believe that. What kind of third-grade version of American history is that, right? Like when Donald Trump says, well, Mexico's not sending their best. What the hell, you think Europe sent their best? Our people were the losers of Europe. The winners didn't get on the boat. You understand what I'm saying? The winners didn't leave. Why the hell would you leave if you were winning? Only the losers left because they had no choice. They were dying. They were starving. They couldn't support their families.
So did we actually steal the land, or were there like contracts with the Native Americans? Oh, there were hundreds of contracts, and almost every one of them was broken. Broken how? I mean, promised land, food, protection, then taken back whenever settlers wanted more. So the land was basically stolen. Systematically. I mean, tribes were pushed west, forced onto reservations, and stripped of their resources. That's wild, and all while the U.S. called itself the land of liberty. Exactly. A nation built on freedom by breaking the promises to the people who were here first.
You know, a lot of white people ask me why I'm always bringing up race. And I'm going to tell you why. Every time you try to let it go, and keep in mind, I got business partners that are white men, but every time you try to let something go, you hear these horrific stories that show you that we're in 2025 and you have a young man, Mr. Lacey, R.I.P., rest his soul, who had a great future. And simply because white men, not all, white women, not all, hate us. And, you know, a lot of white people be like, man, stop making it about race. It's always been about race, and it always will be about race. The stories that you hear, it's always some type of white man, which is the cop. They wanted to crucify this young man. I don't know, maybe because he was successful, black, shit, their wife might knew who he was. But it's always some hate that's coming from that breed. But then when I get on here and make comments and I make videos like this, it's like white people get the first people to get on here and be like, oh, y'all always make it about race. No. Y'all made it about race. And I have many more stories. But that's just a recent one of the young LSU king that they killed. Because even though he committed suicide, they helped him commit suicide by ruining his image and ruining his reputation. So when these little injustices that happen to white people and they want us to feel bad, like Charlie Kirk or whatever his name is, again, I don't got nothing negative to say, but I ain't got nothing positive to say either. White people will always be racist because they feel entitled. to a land that was never theirs. With our mind, you could do anything.
Stop scrolling because what I'm about to say will make you uncomfortable. The land you live on, it was stolen. Oh my God, this is so crazy. White settlers took it, and until we face that truth, we can't see justice. In this video, I'm reacting to the hard facts about stolen land, why it matters today, and what we all need to question. Let's get into it.
The whole nobody is illegal on stolen land argument is bullshit. First of all, not one single place, not one single city, country, anything on this earth is owned by its original owners. Second of all, the part of Mexico that is now the US was bought. Third of all, the Native American land that was stolen was conquered, which is kind of just how the world worked at the time.
Lock in, fuck niggas. We about to fact check this shit. First, if you fuck with me, check out that podcast. Let's get it. What the hell are you talking about? Originally, I wasn't gonna reply to this argument, but it got 1 million views, so I gotta reply to this argument because it doesn't make sense, because when we talk about America and indigenous land, the land was stolen. A lot of people make the argument that the indigenous land was conquered by the American people, so they deserve the land, which is not true. I want to make this clear. Indigenous people did face massacres and they were displaced, but that is just one part of how America took indigenous land. But when you actually do the research into this history, you realize a lot of these conquered land was stolen because of the treaties that they were broken or the bad deals that were made. And this is why we can say that indigenous land was stolen, because when we see the Constitution and what they define treaties, these are legal statutes. That's why we see the Treaty of Hopewell, the Treaty of Greenville. We see the United States broke their treaties in numerous ways. They also made treaties with tribe members that didn't have the position to make treaties with them. And we have the Indian Removal Act. Then we had the Appropriation Acts, which didn't see the indigenous people as a sovereign nation. Then we had the Dawes Act, which forced indigenous land to be owned by private owners. So no, they didn't conquer indigenous land, they stole indigenous land with illegal business practice.
No, honey. United States was not built by immigrants. The United States was built by settlers. Immigrants like me and maybe you, we came here when everything was done, when the roads were paved, when the infrastructure was done, when electricity was here. America was built by settlers, and the difference is the settlers came here to buried lands, to the plains of the Americas, where there was absolutely nothing, and they built cities, and they built the railways, and they built everything else. We are not the same as the settlers. We come here and we enjoy the privilege of being in the United States and take advantage of everything that the United States has to offer us. The settlers weren't offered anything. The settlers came here and built everything, so privileged people like me and you can come here in the United States and live and chase the American dream. We are not legal here, we are privileged to be here. So to say that the United States was built by immigrants is not true. Secondly, it's not stolen land, it's conquered land. There were wars, and wars were lost, and some won, and some lost. And now the people that lost are calling it, oh, you stole my land. No, you lost the war. That's it. There's nothing more to it. Everybody that had ever been in the military knows that the number one equation to know if you're winning the war is how much land you're conquering. That's it. You didn't got land stolen, the land was conquered because some people lost the war. And also, let's not forget the treaty between Texas and Mexico. So if you're an American, you should know that because it's part of your country's history.
America was built on stolen land. You do know that Native American tribes stole each other's land, right? That is not true. They had a spiritual and profound relationship with the land. They were peaceful, and they didn't even believe in private property. Yeah, that deep spiritual connection with the land probably made them very territorial about it. And sure, they didn't believe in private property in a legal sense, but they definitely believed in territory. And every blue moon, they kind of had an itch to expand their territory, kind of like colonization. And once those territory lines got violated, it was a full-out war, raping each other, enslaving each other, killing each other in the name of territory. Sounds like someone needs to decolonize their mind. They were literally just perpetuating racist stereotypes and harmful narratives. The indigenous people were not savages. The word savage never escaped my mouth. This isn't about race or stereotypes. I'm just stating facts. Everybody has a propensity for violence because it's just human nature. Great excuse for the colonizers.
So if this is true that there were black people here before the transatlantic slave trade, then it's not crazy to assume that these people had sophisticated societies. These people had cities. And if that is the case, then that means that when Columbus and the other Europeans and Spaniards got here, in order to colonize this land, they didn't just find empty land with no one living there. They found civilizations of native and black people. And in order to take territory of this land, they had to go to war with these people, right? Because I guarantee that the native people living in the Americas did not just, keel over and give up their land to the Europeans. Which means that American slaves, aka black people, are not people that were shipped. Most of them may not be people that were shipped from Africa, right? That would mean that most of them would be prisoners of war. And if you think about this in a historical context, before Europeans discovered America, the common practice when going to war with another nation, after you defeated the country, was to take the leftover citizens of that nation, especially the warriors, and capture them as prisoners of war, right? This was a common practice that you've probably heard of in old European society, right? And if that's the case, then they would do the same thing when they came to Americas and waged war on whoever was here to take the land. So, according to the numbers and according to historical context, it would actually make sense that the slaves that we consider to be from Africa were actually slaves of war.
So what do we mean by stolen land? When I say stolen land, I don't mean someone sneaking into your yard. I mean land taken by force, broken treaties, or unfair deals from indigenous peoples who lived on it first. Yeah, over hundreds of years, settlers first tricked or convinced indigenous nations to give up land or took it outright. This is not just old history. It is the foundation of many, many, many nations today. Some say they sold it. It was conquered. This is how civilization works. So these claims often ignore how the deals were unfair or how power imbalances made consent impossible. Yeah, some leaders today deny that any stealing happened. Leaders deny this. For example, in the US, Gov. Ron DeSantis said the US was not built on stolen land, but historians disagree. Yeah, they disagree, saying many lands were acquired through force or broken promises. So denial helps those in power avoid responsibility. We have seen real cases and evidence. In Colorado, a new report shows that $1.7 trillion worth of land was taken legally and illegally from tribal nations. This is in evidence. Many treaties had loopholes, were unsigned by all parties, or were later ignored by governments. Think about Briscoe's Beach in California. A black family bought a beach property, built a resort later. Government took it, claiming it was needed for public use. Oh my God. And recently, some of the land was returned after legal fight. So these are not just stories. They are proofs of how land was taken, sometimes masked as legal actions. So why this matters today? Why this matters today? Land is tied to power. It is tied to power, identity, resources. When land is taken, people lose not just property, but culture, homes, rights. Many indigenous communities today fight poverty, lack of basic services, broken promises in part because of stolen land. Also, when we live on land we don't acknowledge was taken, our stories, education, laws get distorted. Yeah, they get distorted. We grow up believing this land was always ours. Denying stolen land means denying the suffering and history of indigenous people. Yeah, that's right. So what justice could look like? Huh? Tell me what justice could look like. Land return, land back. Giving back land to original communities where possible. Compensation or paying for the value of the land. The lost resources damage. Treaties honored. Enforcing all the treaties fairly. Also, legal recognition of sovereignty, acknowledging that indigenous nations have control in their territories. Education and truth telling. Schools must teach the real history, not whitewashed versions. Yeah. Partnership, shared use, co-managing lands with indigenous communities. There are skepticism, pushback, questions you might hear like, but that was centuries ago. You can't fix everything. How do you decide which land to return? Wouldn't that displace people now living there? How much money do you expect? Oh my God. My answer, yes. Tough questions. But justice is never easy. We must wait, right, equity, and aim for solutions that respect original inhabitants and the realities of today. Okay? That's what I think. What you and I can do is learning your local indigenous history, who lived on this land before colonization. Another one we can do is supporting indigenous organizations, land back movement, pushing for better school curricula. Using your voice, write, speak, demand acknowledgement and reparations. Yeah. Also watching how your country handles treaties, land claims, public lands. Yes. Our sense of home, identity, and belonging, they are built on land. But when that land was taken by force, the foundation is broken. Oh my God. The truth about stolen land is not just about the past, it shapes the present and future. Yeah, this shapes the present and the future. Until we face it, we can't build real justice. Yeah, this is all I think about this. So if this video hit you, share it, talk about it, let's peel back the lies together. Drop a comment below. What surprised you most? What do you want me to dig into next? Until next time, stay waking, stay questioning. Catch you next time. Bye.